Number 5. Gordon Cooper. Major Gordon Cooper was an astronaut and flying ace of considerable renown, with more than a few accolades to his name, being the first man to spend a full 24 hours in space solo and the last American to ever spend a solo orbit around the planet altogether. Besides these lofty accomplishments, he was also very vocal about his belief and insistence of life beyond the stars. He'd experienced many strange things over his career. First, when he was an Air Force pilot in 1951, he says on a routine flight over West Germany, he encountered 3 flying metallic saucers following his plane. The incident was reported and nothing was done. But this would be far from the last strange encounter Cooper would have. In 1963, after orbiting the planet, Cooper was returning home when he noticed a glowing green orb following his capsule, which he described as ethereal. The object was picked up by a radar tracking station in Australia. But most bizarre about all of this is that when Major Cooper touched down and returned home, reporters from NBC told him they were explicitly barred from asking any questions about the unidentified object he'd experienced. Beyond bizarre, isn't it? Cooper outright says he believes higher-ups covered it up, saying on record that in the USA every day our radar instruments capture objects of form and composition unknown to us. And there are thousands of witness reports and a quantity of documents to prove this, but nobody wants to make them public. Why? Because authority is afraid that people may think up God knows what kind of horrible invaders. We have to avoid panic by all means. Now, the implication in his words seem pretty direct, that he thinks the government covers it up because they think we can't handle it. I think we're ready. I mean, after the last couple years, I don't think there's any weirdness you can really throw at us. Number 4. Chilean UFO. Our next entry was posted to Reddit on r/aliens. I mean, where else are you gonna find alien clips? The video posted is filmed from a mountain in Chile, where a group of friends on a hike found something amazing in the sky, and luckily had their phones on them to record it. This entity floating around them doesn't really look like your traditional UFO sightings. It looks like a ball of pure energy just hovering above them in a triangular shape, looking like distilled pure light or just some photons or something. Looking around in the background, you can see there's nothing around them. No airports, no mysterious army bases nearby, just a big mountain range and a bizarre glowing ball of light hovering around aimlessly. A user on Reddit offered a rudimentary translation of the friends talking, which adds a little bit of insight to the clip. We can hear the friends joking that it could be a spirit bomb from Goku and there's going to be an epic duel soon. Goku is technically an alien, so I guess if Goku was real and you saw him flying around on the Nimbus cloud, that would qualify for a UFO sighting. They go on to joke that it looks like something out of the movie Independence Day. It's really hard to say just what this thing is. Now, usually I tend to roll a little bit more Scully than Mulder, and I'm naturally a bit skeptic, but I am completely out of ideas looking at this thing. The edges of the triangle are so very visible, and it doesn't really seem like it follows any one particular flight pattern. I can't take even the slightest guess what this might be, so your guess is just as good as mine, my ghouls and goblins. Take a look for yourself, and decide for yourself what the answer is. Number 3. Cosmonaut Kovalyonnik. When you leave the atmosphere, you should expect to see some things you can't explain. I mean, it's up in space. Well, for Vladimir Kovalyonnik, he was in orbit in the summer of 1978. He saw something that would alter his perception of reality forever. He claimed that he saw some floating entity following around the space station, reporting a glowing green ethereal orb, exactly like what Major Gordon Cooper claims to have seen following his capsule. Much like Major Cooper, that wouldn't be the only supernatural extraterrestrial experience Kovalyonnik experienced. In 1981, on another voyage through the stars, he saw something unimaginable. He claims that he saw something floating around, resembling a barbell. He said that it was transparent, but that it looked like it had a body inside of it. It did something that is very difficult for me to describe in the point of view of physics. He describes the entity exploding magnificently, combusting in a ray of golden light, which he described as beautiful. After the explosions, there was a cloud of white smoke and a small sphere, but as they continued orbiting, the smoke and sphere vanished entirely. He goes on to say that he doesn't think whatever he saw was artificial, and that it must have been biological in some way, that it moved in a way that intoned life of some kind. Kovalyonnik was surprised that his fellow cosmonauts did not seem willing to entertain the possibility of it being life from outside the planet, outright dismissing his claims. He's been quoted saying, "Many cosmonauts have seen phenomena which are far beyond the experiences of Earthmen. For 10 years, I never spoke on such things." When he returned home, there were brief investigations that possibly what Kovalyonnik saw was little more than a missile test. And after these brief investigations, the case and the sighting was dropped entirely.
Number 2. Michael Collins. NASA veteran and the very first driver up there, Mr. Michael Collins himself, served as command module pilot on the historic Apollo 11 mission in 1969. When Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin walked on the moon for the very first time, saying those very first famous lines we all know so well, Collins was back parking that thing up there. Mr. Collins stayed up there by himself in lunar orbit waiting for the safe return of his crewmates. I can't even stay in a basement with the lights off by myself. Imagine being up there just drifting in the currents of matter, like being in the middle of the ocean. Yeah, no way, dude. The astronaut retired from NASA in 1970 and spent his free time answering questions on Twitter. Apparently, he has gotten some really interesting buzz. Mr. Collins invited the interweb to chat, saying, quote, "Are we alone? Hashtag Ask Michael Collins." And boy oh boy, did he get some responses. Everything from wackos who like aliens to very, very high-ranked generals and pilots who are apparently also wackos who like aliens for talking about this. Collins, quote, "I used to think that NASA sent me to the wrong place, to the moon, because I think Mars is a much more interesting place," end quote. Collins has talked about it in the past about the possibility of alien life existing beyond Earth and doesn't shy away from discussing the topic in full. In 1999, for instance, he even argued on the topic of life developing in other parts of this infinite cosmos. So maybe it has then. He wrote in his book saying, quote, "I am alone now. Truly alone, and absolutely isolated from any known life. Although I may feel like I'm the same person, I also feel that I am different from other people. I have been places and done things you simply would not believe." Collins circled the moon once every 2 hours. What's scarier, walking on an unknown rock that apparently no one's ever visited, or flying all the way around it by yourself in the pitch black with no communications? Collins achieved the rank of Major General. He left NASA in 1970 to join the State Department and later became director of the Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum in Washington. One of the most key players in this whole thing. Michael Collins sadly passed in 2021.
Number 1. The UAP report. Well, it's hard-pressed to find any more clear-cut proof that the US government has been researching aerial phenomena and UFOs than the US government outright admitting they've been researching UFOs and aliens for years and releasing all of the documents about it kind of quietly, sliding it underneath the door. Now, the actual idea of the report sounds significantly more exciting than it actually is, sadly. It's still very cool, don't get me wrong. But the Pentagon's UAP report isn't quite the smoking ray gun we would hope it is. It doesn't outright blatantly confirm anything. It doesn't point to one flying saucer with a big red circle and say, "Hey, this is an alien, we know this is an alien, we asked for its name, it came from St. Helos and it comes in peace." Instead, the report highlights the hundreds of documented official reports of strange occurrences pilots and other government agents have seen in their service. The report confirms it's something we're looking at. It's done wonders to legitimize the talk around UFOs. First and foremost, to change the nomenclature from UFO, unidentified flying object, to UAP, unidentified aerial phenomena, including the possibility of non-technological flying things. The report focuses primarily on whether or not repeated sightings of mysterious crafts are a threat or dangerous, which is a bit reductive, I think. Why do we have to assume aliens are a threat to us? Now, this isn't the first time the government has put direct resources into researching the possibility of alien life. Most famously probably is Project Blue Book, a CIA task force that ran from 1952 to 1959. But this is the first time an agency has been so outright forthcoming about sharing their findings with the public, renewing interest in UFO and UAPs. It's a very strong path forward to legitimate discussions, finding, and who knows what else. Number 5. TikTok sighting. Our first entry on this list comes to us from a very reputable source, TikTok. TikTok user Drillabang, who posted this video recently online. The caption, "We caught them out there," is almost Mulder's catchphrase of "the truth is out there." Almost. And it seems like they are. The video shows a short clip of someone filming the sky and clouds, and passing through the clouds slowly is something. It's kind of hard to tell. It's an unidentified flying object. A small black being with what looks like tentacles protruding from it, like a little black jellyfish. The entity is moving slowly through the sky, with what looks like an electrical field following all around it. The being appears to be electrical, possibly a small mechanical drone. My first thought looking at one of these things is just how much this thing looks like the Sentinel signals from the Matrix. Could very well be evidence of the simulation leaking through. This clip is undeniably pretty odd. It's hard to make out just how big this flying entity is, although it does look a little bit small, but really, it's hard to tell. Is it a spacecraft? Is it a living being, but biomechanical? Is it a drone? Of course, it has to be said, the clip, as impressive as it is, could very well be a high-production hoax. Like I said, the thing really does look a little too perfect for me, and it looks a lot like one of those Matrix Sentinels. I honestly wouldn't even be surprised if it's a shrunken down 3D model of it used for the video. But real or fake, you can't deny that the video is captivating and has people talking. Oh, what do you think? Let me know down in the comments about this one if you think this has you convinced. And hey, while I've got you here listening, you want to see a whole lot more spooky stuff this month? Well, I got news for you, pal. I got boxes full of spooky stuff. Subscribe for a fresh fright in your inbox delivered daily. Number 4. Ryan Graves. Now, for most of us, seeing a UFO would probably be the highlight of our life, or at the very least our week. But for Lieutenant Ryan Graves, a 10-year Navy veteran, seeing a UFO became a routine. On an interview with CBS on their 60 Minutes, Lieutenant Graves said that he saw UFOs every single day for years. He recounts his first encounter, where he was stunned, saying he saw a mysterious flying object trailing around him, with no markings on it, no exhaust plume, no trail of any kind. He described it as a flying black cube that appeared to have a sphere located inside of it. The pilots in Graves' squadron would report seeing these mysterious cubes constantly during their training exercise, even coming dangerously close to crashing into them and causing them to be labeled a threat. Graves said initially they were skeptical about them being alien craft, which is reasonable, and that his men had been assuming they were highly advanced drones being tested clandestinely. But as time goes on, Graves changed his tune, instead advocating for the discussion to be had about UFOs and if there's more to know out there. He wants to centralize the conversation around UFOs not being an outlandish conspiracy theory, but more of a security concern. But are they really, even? I mean, surely if there was alien life capable of provoking a conflict, they would have done it by now, right? Or perhaps these crafts were just scouts, or something else entirely. All I want to know is the truth. Number 3, the Ring of Light. Another entry coming to us fresh from Reddit, posted by user Jesse Zell. A short clip that shows us something incredibly bizarre. The clip is captioned appropriately, "The most unexplained thing I have ever seen in my life," and I'm strongly inclined to agree. Take a little look-see. In the clip, we get a pretty good shot at a suburban house and the overcast night sky above. A little bit above the house, there appears to be a ring of light that appears, circling around, appearing a few lights at a time, rounding the house a few times. That's bizarre. Even the skeptics should buy into this one. I mean, it's easy to just imagine a flying saucer hovering a little bit out of view atop the clouds, descending its undercarriage lights on the neighborhood. A user in the comments proposed that it could just be nothing more than a series of spotlights. But the original poster and uploader of the video insists that from where they were standing, the lights are appearing above the clouds, not below them. And even then, what explains the perfectly circular pattern displayed? The user goes on to say that there was no particularly loud noises emanating from around the skies, and it was very hard to make out what was happening. They go on to add that they're very familiar with drones and have drones flying around their home with some regularity. I'm hoping they mean just a neighbor or an enthusiast and not that they're being watched. And that they would recognize a drone if there was one, and that they are certain these lights were not caused by drones. So just what is causing it? What was it? Is this Reddit user being observed by someone from the stars? Are they potentially a target for an abduction? We eagerly await a follow-up on this one. Number 2, the cube. Posted to YouTube by user, well, fittingly named, Is This a UFO? This brief 20-second clip showcases a pilot filming from inside the cockpit. Also, side note before I start talking about all the alien stuff, is that safe? Are you allowed to be doing that? I guess the plane doesn't crash in the video, so I'll take their word for it. Anyway, the clip is really short and sweet. We see from the window that there's a small cuboid-like shape blasting through the sky. The footage is extremely clear, unlike most UFO footage, and it's really easy to see what's happening, although it doesn't help matters much or provide you with any clear answers. What we can see is a small black cube propelling itself forward. There's no trail of smoke, no lights flashing, just a small black cube flying around. So what is that? Some comments in the video suggest that it could be a weather balloon or a helium balloon, although I gotta say the altitude is a bit questionable, or why it's traveling horizontally so fast. Its travel in the video does seem a bit pointed and intentional, like it's trying to get somewhere, although that could just be me wanting to apply sentient traits for it because I badly want to believe. Interestingly though, In 2014, a report from a 10-year Navy pilot veteran, Lieutenant Ryan Graves, claims that in his service, he would see UFOs nigh daily and would report them constantly, only to have his reports ignored. Interesting. He said in his time in the service, he'd see unexplainable objects flying by him at hypersonic speeds with no trails, no exhaust, often 30,000 feet up in the air undetected by his radar. He said one of the more consistent things that he would see was an object that looked like a sphere encased in a cube. Kinda sounds a bit like the cube propelling itself forward in this clip, doesn't it? Fascinatingly, after this report from Graves, the Navy announced it would be changing the way it handled UFO reports internally. Perhaps there's something they know and they're not telling us. Number 1, the laser pointer. And finally, we're down to our number 1 clip. Now this is my favorite clip of the bunch, by far. I mean, I would hope so, otherwise why would I bother putting it at the number 1 spot? This clip also comes to us from Reddit from user Luke511, filming above him what appears to be a ball of light bouncing around bizarrely in the sky. A UFO if I've ever seen one. Luke, who when faced with the dangers of the unknown, the wonders of the cosmos, possibly standing on a chance to make that fabled first contact with another civilization with unknown frontiers, stood proudly and takes a laser pointer out and starts flashing it upwards to the sky. Now I have nothing but respect for this absolute madman who got right down to brass tacks. Because him flashing that laser pointer made this video go from, oh, maybe that's a UFO, to, oh, that is definitely a spacecraft being piloted by an intelligent being. In the video, as soon as you see him flashing it around, the vehicle maneuvers on a dime, trying clearly to avoid the laser, which is pretty damning. Now the reason I love this clip so much, besides the fact that I do think it's pretty concrete evidence, assume these really are aliens flying around in that spacecraft. Imagine you're coming down to a new planet and you see a green beam coming from the ground pointing directly at you. Do you think they were freaking out? Do you think they were losing their minds, panicking that they got made? That laser was gonna come for them and destroy them? Or do you think it was more like a kitten situation? Like they saw the laser and got distracted by a really enticing game of intergalactic chase? Luke511, this has gotta be a top moment for humanity and for you as a whole. Tagging a UFO with a laser beam and potentially scaring alien life has got to be a landmark moment for us as a species. My only concern is that maybe this event might have sent intergalactic relations back just a little bit. I'm hoping aliens aren't afraid to visit the planet now because of the danger of green lights. We'll turn them off, we promise. We're sorry, it was just a little prank.
Number 5, Leland Melvin. American engineer and now retired NASA astronaut Leland Melvin has spent hundreds of hours in space. Literally hundreds. Leland holds 4 honorary doctorates for his service in education, the sciences, and philanthropy. Doctorates. I'm just saying that before the comments start rolling in saying he's just another wacko. He's crazy. They're not wackos, people. Any of them. They've been screened so many times by so many people with so many tests, they have to be damn well near perfect before going up on or in NASA's budget. Before his career with NASA, Leland was actually All-American for football. Detroit Lions, Toronto Argos. Guy made the NFL and then said, you know what? I think I'm gonna be an astronaut. Like, give this guy a Netflix movie, would ya? He was selected by NASA in 1998 after getting injured with a football career. Guy goes from the turf to working at NASA Langley Center. This guy's put in time, both down here and up there. Mission after mission with NASA. He's got quite the practice at the whole floating around thing. When Leland was pressed about otherworldly visitors and his ideas about the cosmos, he said this when he was working up in orbit. He had seen something translucent, curved and organic looking when he was working with fellow astronaut Randy Bresnik. The pair of them, again, called down to NASA to ask what it could be. NASA's official response was probably ice. Yeah, nice and specific there, Houston. Thank you for that. When has NASA ever said probably? Melvin dismissed this and figured it was NASA's explanation to just cover it up. Like, who's more qualified here? That's all I'm asking. When the most qualified people are like, yeah, I can't tell if that's frozen water or a full-on mothership, Houston. Either they shouldn't be up there at all, or we need some more Windex on those windows there, NASA. Huh? Number 4, Ivan Wagner. As always, if you dig what we do here at Top 5 Scary, make sure you hit that like button or comment down below. It really helps the channel out. Have you ever seen a UFO out there? Yeah, you. Have you seen one? Comment down below with some details about your experiences. I know I have. Twice now. Hence the obsession with all this stuff. Those Reddit rabbit holes, boy oh boy. Speaking of falling into a wormhole of conspiracy and who said what, astronaut Ivan Wagner, or I should say cosmonaut Ivan Wagner, since he's Russian by birth and although he's bunking up with some roomies up there in the ISS, he was on the ISS as a first timer just back in 2020. Does NASA initiate rookies up there? Like pull pranks on the newbies? Like no gravity, just unbuckle you while you sleep, flow you out, you know? He and fellow Russian Anatoly Ivanishin were working up there alongside Chris Cassidy, the American commander of said expedition. When Wagner was orbiting the Earth, he might have captured some footage of UFOs, better known as UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena. It's the jargon nowadays. The aurora lights behind Earth's beautiful curves was being recorded from the ISS when he saw a string of really weird lights moving in a really weird way. He labeled the video Space Guests. Wagner tweeted the vid, which apparently shows the aurora australis near Antarctica, and then all of a sudden this blob of organized lights just cruises on over the globe. Looks like a blob of like glitter just trucking across space. Like, what is that? Of course NASA didn't follow up. Like, what are they gonna say? Oh yeah, those are stars that move and blink, I think. I mean, no? Space junk. Yeah, space debris and swamps and things. Also, what a lame excuse. Space junk? Okay, so you're saying there's lots of litter up there, that's what you're saying? That's what just zipped over my house silently, defying gravity and lasered up my cow? Yeah, I don't think so, NASA. Number 3. Chris Hadfield. Retired Canadian astronaut, engineer, fighter pilot, and musician. Ladies and gentlemen, Chris Hadfield flew 2 missions and also served as commander on the International Space Station. Before his career as an astronaut, he served in the Canadian Armed Forces for 25 years as an Air Commander fighter pilot. So he has the credentials to say the least. In 1992, Hadfield was accepted into the Canadian astronaut program. He first flew in space in 1995, and since then, he says he's seen tons of stuff up there just zipping around that even a man with all those credentials says he can't explain. Quote, "I've seen countless things in the sky, but he has a pretty cool take on it. He doesn't keep it on the DL, he doesn't boast, and he doesn't panic. Seems like Chris has the mentality like, quote, to see something in the sky that you don't understand and then to immediately conclude it's intelligent life from another solar system is the height of foolishness and lack of logic. However, Chris seems to have a little dirt on Mars that maybe we all don't. He said, I think the fundamental question is that Mars was a lot like Earth 4 billion years ago when life first formed. So if it happened here, did it happen there? It would be evident somewhere in the geologic records. All we need is one fossil for proof. He thinks there could be potentially alien life in the clouds of Venus or on the distant moons of one of our gas giants. Researchers have suggested that there could be microbial life in the clouds of Venus because of the presence of ammonia, which on Earth is a key indicator of aquatic life. Aquatic life, eh? Atlanteans? Hadfield on the UAP phenomenon, quote, "We have 7 people living up there. We've been sending people to space since I was born. I spent half a year off planet looking everywhere. It makes no sense at all that intelligent life somewhere from not our solar system could cross interstellar space and just sneak around and only be caught on some strange video by fighter pilots. It just doesn't pass any basic sniff test or logic. It's fun, it's exciting, but if you use reason, the whole argument falls apart." End quote. Okay, Chris Hadfield, keep your secrets for now, you polite Canadian you. Wait till people start looking into Paul Hellier, another very polite Canadian with some secrets of his own. Until then, you keep distracting us up there with that guitar, Chris. I see you, Jake Sully.
Number 2. Hack the Planet. Now, it's frustrating, I'm sure, to think that there could be answers for the unexplained out there, and no one is willing to share them with us, out of fear we'd react badly. For one man, for one Gary McKinnon, this unknowing was simply too much to bear, and he decided to get the answers the only way he knew how, the easy way, hacking directly into NASA's servers to get at their data. Why would he do that? Why would he risk his whole life and career for this? For the truth, directly. From McKinnon's own mouth, he said, "I knew that governments suppressed anti-gravity UFO-related technologies, free energy, or what they call zero-point energy. This sort of thing should not be kept hidden from the public when pensioners can't pay their fuel bills." So did he find anything worth risking his freedom for? Well, according to Mr. McKinnon, yes he did. He claims to have found something called the Disposure Project, a 400-page document outlining testimonials from all kinds of government agents reporting their sightings and findings on unexplained objects. Fantastically too, Mr. McKinnon claims that he got a hold of a document entitled Non-Terrestrial Officers, listing the names of NASA officers who were to be transferred to new ships. However, McKinnon stated that he could not find the name of any of these ships existing anywhere elsewhere. McKinnon, as well, presumably incredibly satisfied with his findings, vandalized one of NASA's websites, leaving behind a message saying, "Your security is crap, by the way." Utterly hilarious, but it did come back to bite him, as the white hat hacker was swiftly arrested and was to be extradited to the United States to stand trial there. Now, the 56-year-old managed to avoid extradition. He still lives in the United Kingdom today, but he's definitely going to want to avoid visiting the US anytime soon, as I sincerely doubt they've forgotten about that little bit of vandalism.
Number 1. Buzz Aldrin. Of course, the poster child for the whole phenomenon itself, Mr. Edwin Eugene Aldrin Jr. American astronaut, engineer, fighter pilot with a doctorate of science in astronautics. This guy is overqualified, okay? 3 spacewalks in 1966, Gemini 12 mission in 1969, Apollo 11 mission. He and mission commander Neil Armstrong were the first 2 people to land on the moon. Quote, "There was something out there, close enough to be observed. What could it be?" According to Aldrin, on Apollo 11 to the moon, quote, "I observed a light out the window that appeared to be moving alongside us. What could that have been other than a spacecraft from another country or another world? It was either the rocket that had separated from us or the 4 panels that moved away when we extracted the lander, right?" After he returned from his missions, he was convinced he saw aliens while he was out there. Credentials aside, he took a lie detector test, people, which he passed with flying colors. In an interview with C-SPAN Buzz, he talked about the future potential of Earth's moon for humanity. He added a little extra info that might have gained the spark to go back, regarding a certain monolith on a moon. Quote, "Visit the moon Phobos of Mars. There's a monolith there, a very unusual structure on this little potato object that goes around Mars once in every 7 hours. When people find out about that, they're gonna say, 'Who put that there?' And you bet, Buzz, I'll be the first one to ask that."